Richie or old money, the kind that had enough money to never have to worry about it again. Except for me, being poor was all I'd ever known. As the only child of 2 working-class immigrants, my parents sacrificed everything to give my sister Heather and I a better life than the one they had. For them, that meant attending church every Sunday and making sure we got good grades so we could get good jobs, stable jobs that wouldn't keep us on our feet all day. When I told them I wanted to be a chef, their faces fell. They didn't understand why I couldn't accept that some jobs were simply beneath me, but all I knew was that I loved cooking. I'd spent most of my childhood poring over my grandmother's recipe book, dreaming of one day opening my own restaurant. After graduating high school, I attended Johnson & Wales University, and when I received an acceptance letter to Le Cordon Bleu College in Paris, I knew my dreams were coming true. Upon my return to America, I secured a job as a line cook at a popular French bistro. I saved every dollar, worked overtime, and eventually bought out my grandmother's old restaurant in the Little Italy neighborhood of Manhattan. With my own money, I paid off her mortgage, restored the building, and opened the restaurant of my dreams. It was a huge success. Within a year, I'd become one of the most popular chefs in New York City. I appeared on TV shows, did private catering for celebrities, and was nominated for a James Beard Award. My life was everything I'd ever dreamed of, except for one thing. I hadn't told my family. The truth was, I was terrified. I hadn't been honest with them about anything since I left Greenwich. I knew they would unapprove of my choice to go into the restaurant business, and I was unprepared to hear their disappointment again. So I kept my life a secret, moving back to Connecticut and living under a false identity. Every day, I drove past the fancy country club where my family spent their free time, pretending I wasn't the successful chef they were ignoring. But it was eating away at me. I missed being open and honest. And most of all, I missed my family. One day, I got a call from my dad. He told me Heather was getting married and the whole family would be in town for a celebratory dinner at Masen, the best restaurant in town. I couldn't help but feel a pang of longing. I hadn't seen my family in 5 years. The thought of seeing them now, looking perfect and put together, scared me. But I had to see them. When I arrived, I was shocked. The entire family was there. My dad, Mom, Heather, and even my aunt with her new husband. We hugged and caught up, and then we sat down to eat. The waiter approached our table. "Can I get you ladies and gentlemen something to drink?" he asked. "Champagne," my dad said. "Of course." The waiter smiled warmly at me. "Welcome back, owner." What? I looked around in confusion. Was he talking about me? "Didn't you recognize me without my chef's whites on?" I asked. "Of course I did," he said. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Mitchell. It's just that you look so different. Are you sure you want champagne? You were always fond of the vintage here." "Yes, that's right," I confirmed, confused as to how he knew me. "And it's not Mrs. Mitchell," I said. "Call me by my first name." "Of course, Dara," he said. "Right? I'm sorry. I remember now. You hate it when I call you Mrs. Mitchell." Everyone stared at me. I realized what had happened. I'd been so busy trying to hide myself that I had UN notice the name tag on the waiter's apron that read, Kevin. The waiter had been my sous chef at the bistro. How could I have been so blind? It felt like an eternity before my dad spoke. "Dara, is this true? Are you the owner of Masen?" "Yes, it's me." I looked down at my hands. "I'm sorry, I kept it a secret, but I was so afraid of what you'd say. I just wanted to show you with my actions." "Oh, baby," my mom said, rushing over to hug me. "We were so worried. Why didn't you tell us you were in town? We could have come to your restaurant. We had no idea." "Me neither," Heather said, giving me a hug. I can't believe you were here all this time and I didn't know it. Come to think of it, I'm not surprised at all that you became a famous chef. You were always the best cook in the family. That night, we talked for hours about my life, my dreams, and my future. I learned that they had actually been to my restaurant many times without knowing it was mine, and they had loved it. Dad even admitted he'd been bragging about the place to his friends at the country club. So, my dad said, raising his glass of champagne, to Dara, may you always follow your dreams, no matter how different they are from ours. And finally, I knew I was home. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more stories. See you next time. The gentle clink of glasses echoed through the dining room as my sister, Clara, beamed at the center of attention. The soft candlelight glistened off the expensive jewelry adorning her figure as our parents and her fiancé. Ethan showered her with compliments. My girl, you are going to make an excellent addition to this family, Ethan. Your father and I could not have asked for a better son, Mom said, her eyes sparkling with unshed tears. Ethan, ever the gentleman, took her hand and squeezed it gently. Thank you, Mrs. Vance. It means a lot to me. I am also very happy to be joining such a respectable family. His gaze shifted to me, a fleeting smile gracing his lips before he looked away. The family dinner was meant to be a celebratory event. Clara had just landed a coveted position at a prestigious law firm. Her future was looking brighter than the chandeliers that adorned the dining room, which were actually replicas of the ones in Marie Antoinette's palace, by the way. Meanwhile, I was an outlier in this sea of my worn leather jacket and well-loved Doc Martens felt out of place amongst the crisp linens and gleaming silverware. I wasn't there because of any achievement of mine. I was simply the odd sister who never quite fit in. As they continued to shower Clara with praise, I couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. Don't get me wrong, I was genuinely happy for my sister. It's just that growing up, all the spotlight had always been on her. I was the one who got lost in the background, content to blend in with the wallpaper. I had chosen a different path after high school. Instead of attending the university our parents had paid for, I enlisted in the army. 4 years of rigorous training followed by 2 tours in Afghanistan had taught me resilience and strength. But those experiences had also left their scars, both visible and invisible. When I returned home, I felt more at ease amongst the soldiers I'd served with than with my own family. They understood a different kind of language, one that didn't include snide remarks or expectations. With them, I was just Riley, not Clara's weird sister who didn't fit in. There was nothing wrong with Clara's achievements. She was brilliant, hardworking, and destined for great things. It's not like I resented her for being successful. Rather, I felt overshadowed, like a supporting character in a play I didn't even want to be a part of. The dinner continued. They discussed Clara's new job, her plans for the future, and, of course, the upcoming wedding. My contributions to the conversation consisted of polite smiles and the occasional nod, my silence speaking volumes about how I truly felt. Every now and then, Ethan would glance at me, his gaze lingering a little too long before he quickly looked away. There was something about him that set off alarm bells in my head, but I couldn't put a finger on it. He was handsome, successful, and clearly in love with my sister. What was there not to like? As the evening progressed, I retreated further into myself, focusing on the intricate patterns of the tablecloth to hide the tears that threatened to spill. Being around them was like navigating a minefield. I never knew when another landmine of a comment would explode, leaving me feeling inadequate. Clara, oblivious to my turmoil, was in her element, basking in the glow of her family's adoration. She was the star of the show, and I was merely an extra on the sidelines. So, Riley, tell us, what are you working on these days? Dad asked, his tone laced with polite interest. I looked up, startled by the question. Oh, just some art projects, I replied vaguely, hoping they wouldn't pry further. A chorus of "oh" filled the room. "And what sort of art projects?" Mom pressed, her brow furrowed with curiosity. I shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "Just, painting, drawing, nothing special," I mumbled, averting my gaze. "I see," Dad said, his tone numb. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the carpet and become invisible. Their disappointment was palpable, suffocating me like a thick fog. Clara, bless her heart, tried to change the subject, but it was too late. The damage was done. They had labeled me the artist, the dreamer, the one who didn't have a real job. Throughout the rest of the dinner, I was subjected to a barrage of subtle jabs, each one chipping away at my already fragile confidence. They talked over me, ignored my opinions, and belittled my aspirations. I was a punching bag of emotions, anger, sadness, frustration. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment to compose myself. As I splashed cold water on my face, I stared at my reflection, my own eyes staring back accusingly. Who was I to complain? I had the scars, the experiences that made me who I was. Still, that didn't make it any less painful. Suddenly, a knock on the door broke my concentration. "Riley, can you come here for a second, please?" It was Ethan. His voice held a gentleness that surprised me. I dried my face, forcing myself to calm down. Taking a deep breath, I walked out of the bathroom and followed him. He led me to a quiet corner of the living room. "What did you talk to Dad and Mom about?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. Startled by his sudden question, I hesitated before replying. "Nothing important. Just some small talk," I lied, hoping to brush him off. He shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "Don't lie to me, Riley. They were talking about you, weren't they?" Taken aback by his perceptiveness, I couldn't help but nod slowly. "Why do they treat you this way?" he asked softly, reaching out to gently touch my arm. His touch was unexpectedly comforting, like a soothing balm on a raw wound. In that moment, I felt a connection with him that went beyond his relationship with my sister. Hesitantly, I began to share my feelings. The years of being overlooked, the subtle jabs, the constant comparisons. As I spoke, the dam broke and tears streamed down my face. Ethan didn't try to hold me back. Instead, he listened patiently, his eyes filled with understanding and empathy. "I'm sorry, Riley. I had no idea," he whispered, his voice heavy with remorse. We stood there for a while in comfortable silence, his presence a calming influence amidst the chaos that had been my life. Then, as if realizing the awkwardness of the situation, I pulled away, wiping my tears and forcing a smile. "Don't worry about it," I said, trying to sound nonchalant. "It's just how it is, I guess." He took a step closer, his gaze intense. "No, it doesn't have to be that way. You deserve better than the way they treat you, Riley." Before I could respond, he leaned in and kissed me. A gentle yet passionate kiss that sent shivers down my spine. In that moment, I knew that Ethan wasn't just my sister's fiancé. He was someone who saw me, who understood me in a way that no one else did. As we pulled away, I looked into his eyes and saw a love that transcended blood ties. I was more than just Clara's sister to him. I was Riley, the woman he loved. Suddenly, Clara appeared beside us, her face pale with shock. "Ethan, what are you doing?" she whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. Before either of us could respond, our parents joined us, their faces etched with concern. "What's going on here?" Dad asked, his voice echoing the sentiment. In that charged atmosphere, I knew it was time to set the record straight. I stepped forward, meeting my parents' gaze directly. I'm not just your disappointment, the weird sister who doesn't fit in, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed emotion. They looked at me, their faces unreadable, waiting for me to continue. Taking a deep breath, I pressed on. I'm Riley, and I'm your daughter too, and I deserve more than your pity. I deserve your respect. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of years of pent-up emotions. Clara stepped forward, her earlier composure replaced with genuine concern. I'm sorry, Riley. I didn't know, she whispered, reaching out to touch my arm. Looking into her eyes, I knew she was being sincere. Our bonds as sisters had endured years of distance, and I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. But it was our parents whose reaction surprised me. Mom was the first to break the silence. Oh, honey, we didn't realize, she said, her voice choked with emotion. Dad nodded, his face etched with remorse. We're sorry, Riley. We should have seen this coming. I saw the tears glistening in their eyes and heard the sincerity in their voices. In that moment, I knew that they weren't the heartless people I had perceived them to be. As the realization dawned on them, a wave of emotions washed over their faces: regret, sadness, and finally, understanding. We should have been there for you, Riley, Mom said, her voice thick with emotion. You were always there for us, and we failed to notice. I reached out, taking both their hands in mine. It's okay. I'm here now. And this is all that matters, I said, my voice brimming with newfound strength. Looking back, I realized that it had been worth waiting for. Not for this moment of pity or apology, but for the chance to be truly seen and understood. I may have been the underdog, the forgotten sister, but I was no longer defined by my past. I was Riley, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next.